I just think it's so hard to grow because it's so tied up in our worth and what we believe is possible for ourselves, even when we think in our mind, of course, yes, I want that. And yet, like, why are we not doing it? And I think that can be a really frustrating place to be.
Welcome to the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast, where you will learn simple solutions to win at work without losing at home. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I am your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business by elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl, to procrastinating on your goals and living in overwhelm. And it's time to say hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits so that you can achieve work-life harmony. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast. Let's do this. Welcome back, friends. We have a Turquoise Talk guest today. For today's episode, her name is Melissa Hoyer, and she is a certified financial planner and life and wealth coach. So we talk about what is wealth coaching. We talk about money mindset. We talk about investing, what it looks like to invest, some of the blocks we have around investing. And we talk about I think it was called money archetypes. And I'm fascinated by that because it's similar to really knowing your strengths and who you are with the Pro Scan. I use that for my coaching. So this is helping you to understand your money archetypes and how you feel about money, manage money, and operate with money based on these archetypes. That was really, really interesting to talk about. She's a mom, she's a wife, she has a teenage daughter, and she was just a lot of fun to interview. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. If you have thoughts about money, if you are realizing that you're kind of self-sabotaging because of some of your thoughts about money, or you just want to know what are you talking about with the money archetypes, you're going to love this episode. So let's dive right in. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the show. Today's Turquoise Talk guest, Melissa Hoyer. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Martine. I'm delighted to be here.
So tell us just a little bit about you, your family, and really what's the story on how you got into the work that you're doing today?
Good question. So my name is Melissa, and I'm a certified financial planner and professional life coach based in Boulder, Colorado. And I've been doing this work for 20 years.
Okay.
So how I got into the coaching aspect, how I layered that into the financial planning is that I would say 15 years ago, we wanted to give a client a gift and she was starting a nonprofit. So I said, let's get her a coach to help her with this nonprofit. So I interviewed all these coaches. She hired someone and she hired the coach that I thought was just fascinating, the way he had conversation, the way he was in conversation. And I was like, who are you? And where did you get your training? And he told me about the Coaches Training Institute, which is where I went 15 years ago. And I thought I just wanted to get better at coaching, but I got bit by the coaching bug.
It's easy to get bit by.
Yep, as so many of us do. And I went the whole 9 yards, got certified. I went through a year-long leadership program. And eventually I created my own coaching program that I do here at the Wealth Conservancy, which is called Way Into Wealth. So that's how I created this blend of financial planning and coaching. Mm-hmm. So a little bit about my family. I am married. I met my husband in college in Iowa. We were both French majors, and then we graduated and thought, okay, now what? Went back to school. And we have a 16-year-old daughter and a cute puppy.
That's awesome. I love dogs.
Yeah,
I absolutely love dogs. They're a part of the family, aren't they? They just make your way into your heart.
So much.
Just there. Yes, for sure. I love that you brought coaching into this space because there's so much in my own experience as an entrepreneur for 18 years now. There's so much mindset that is involved in financial planning, right? I mean, there's the tactical spreadsheets and all of those things, but it's
Mhm.
also like, what are your thoughts about the numbers that you're seeing on the
Mhm.
page? Or what are the thoughts that you
Mhm.
have overall about money?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
women specifically, that's primarily our listeners, there's a lot of thoughts that we have about
Mhm.
money. So did you have to overcome any of that yourself first, like as you kind of transitioned into coaching and building your own
Mhm.
business around it? Were there
Mhm.
any like money blocks that you had in that process? Just curious.
Well, I think that the way it works is I feel like this aspect of coaching is where the humanness comes into the
Yeah.
money conversation.
Yes.
And I think I've always been that kind of person.
Okay.
I've always been a relationship person, for example. So, in
Mm-hmm.
a way, the coaching found me. It wasn't so much a transformation of like, oh, now it's all about the relationship. I was just more numbers before. I think I was the relationship person.
Okay.
And I was so grateful to find this pathway to do these money conversations in a way that felt authentic to me and more humane and natural and
Yeah.
more transformative because it's like, okay, what do you think about this? But how do you feel about that? What we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes up in that moment is what is transformative.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what exactly is wealth coaching. Like we know what wealth is and we know what coaching is, but can you like
Uh-huh.
for someone who's like, I've never heard someone say it that way, what exactly is
Mhm.
wealth coaching?
Yes, it's a great question. So I think of it like an iceberg where we all can see the tip of the iceberg. And then underneath the water, there's this giant, that's where the mass of the iceberg resides.
Mhm.
So what wealth coaching is, like putting on your scuba gear and diving down to see what's in there, to bring more awareness to it. Like what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It can happen through a coaching conversation and
Mm.
it can happen during the financial planning process where we might be talking about, a trust that you've inherited and noticing someone, feel like quiet all of a sudden or tearful or something like that, and just pausing to say, okay, what's happening for you right now, and that's the moment when you're putting on the scuba gear and going down to see what's in there, and you can do that yourself with a friend, with a coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's really hard to do that on our own, don't you? Like it's
I think
hard.
having a guide is really, really helpful,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that we can give ourselves space. But I'm also like a super reflective person. I journal every morning.
Me too.
So I think it's a great practice too to just be with ourselves in those
Yeah.
moments to just explore.
Yeah. I find like once I get into or learn the skill set of reflection, learn the skill set of putting the scuba gear on. I love that analogy and diving into the depths of it. But
Mm-hmm.
so many of us, you and I are skilled at it because we're coaches, but then the average person doesn't know how to do that. It sounds like, what do you mean reflect? Or what do you mean dive
Mm-hmm.
deep into it? So I think there
Mm-hmm.
is a season where coming alongside someone or having someone to
Mm-hmm.
help you learn the
Mm-hmm.
skill sets of doing those things so that you can continue it on for life on your
Mm-hmm.
own. And I like to think
Mm-hmm.
of my coaching, you probably feel the same way, is that like I'm happy to coach someone for years and years and years if that's what they need, but I also feel really it's a great reward of mine to know that I've taught them the skill sets, right, to handle these things on their
Mm-hmm.
own and manage life and consciously live their lives and design their lives from the things we worked on together for that short season.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes we can get stuck down there too. So it's helpful to have a guide to say, come, wait, no, this is up here.
Come up for air.
Right.
This is not a free dive for life. Like, come up and get you some oxygen supply up there.
Right.
That's so true. That's so true. So let's talk about the money archetypes. I'm not really sure I understand what that is, and I'm sure there'll be listeners also, but it's very intriguing to me. So can you share with us what you mean by that?
Mm-hmm. So each one of us has habits and patterns and beliefs and motivations around money. And
Okay.
it's shaped by all sorts of things like our families, our culture, the time period that we live in, the country we live in. There's just so many things that shape that.
Mhm.
And there tend to be these common patterns people have with money, and those are the archetypes.
Okay.
So, archetypes are patterns that span time and location and all sorts of things. And the archetypes play out in our money world. So, for example, an archetype could be a nurturer. So that person loves to give and support. And there's going to be a way for that archetype to express in a way that's positive. And a lot of times these archetypes can be out of balance, or there might be a shadow side to that. For example, with a nurturer, it might be that you overgive and you overgive your money, you overgive your time, you feel resentful, you feel burnt out. So what I love about the archetypes is there's several of them, and we can get into more detail about them if you're interested, but they just are what they are. And there's no right one or no wrong one. But it's having the awareness of what archetype you are.
Yeah.
And kind of like what some of the positive expressions and some of the challenges are with that archetype. Just give it some framework and structure to see where you are in that and how to lean into your strengths that are really natural. So you can be positively expressing your archetype.
Yeah. I love that because it's so in alignment with the work that I do with my clients too, with helping them to align their natural strengths. So it's like the awareness of what your strengths are and knowing yourself on that level, it does bring such a sense of freedom to be who you are, right?
Yes.
And to understand, but there's also a shadow side of that too. And it might lend to procrastination if you have this thing in your personality, or like you were saying, if you're a nurturer, you're probably going to overgive. And sometimes, like I'm thinking of my best friend's grandmother who is that way, and she gave all of her money away, and to the point where it put her in a really bad financial bind, but she just didn't know how to harness that in the right, I guess, not right way, but in a more productive, healthy way, I guess is the right word. So can you give us just some examples of what some of these archetypes are and what the positive, and then also like what tendencies that might not be healthy show up for that person?
Yep. So there's a ruler. I'll mention that one since there's a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this. And rulers are, I think, oftentimes entrepreneurs, but they love to build and they love to create. And usually rulers are pretty good with numbers. And I think the challenge for a ruler is they might invest so much in their business that they, overwork.
Yeah. Are they also learners? Like, are they the people that like love to learn and they're constantly like growing their intelligence too?
I absolutely. And I think rulers like to direct. They are natural leaders.
Okay.
They know great ways to get things done. So even in a marriage, let's say you have a ruler and your spouse is a different archetype, that person might power the other person.
Yeah.
And it's not so much collaboration. It might be more of like, just a different like power over paradigm, right? Where one is kind of running the show and the other one's not as informed, therefore not as empowered.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or if you have two rulers, you might butt heads a little bit.
I can see that. No, I'm going to take charge. No, I'm going to take charge. No, we're going to do this with our money. No, we're going to do this with our money.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so you said there's several different types. Like, is this just to give me a little bit more examples of some of those?
So we've talked about ruler, we've talked about nurturer. There are alchemists, and alchemists are people who like it's almost like a matter of life and death, that whatever decisions you're making about your money, whether it's investing or spending, you must make a positive impact in the world. Like that's just the way it is. It's almost painful not to.
Yeah. So all their money that they invest, whether it be into their business, the impact is the most important thing for them.
Exactly. Impact is the most important thing. And an alchemist might feel frustrated by money. They might have a love-hate relationship with money because there's never enough money to have the impact that they want to have. And it's frustrating. And they're usually more creative in terms of how they make money. It might not be the person who's doing the 9-to-5 job, but that's a little bit about an alchemist. And then mavericks, it's like money is a game for mavericks. And I would imagine there are some mavericks in your listeners who it's such a fun challenge to make the next sale, to make money. And so it's a game. And for Mavericks, it can be so rewarding. And Mavericks are really comfortable with risk.
I was going to say risk is the word that kept coming up when you mentioned a Maverick. I'm like, they're probably taking all
Yes.
kinds of risks and it's a game for them.
Yeah. And that's kind of the challenge for a Maverick too, is they may risk too much
Yeah. Yeah.
and lose too much
Yeah.
and shoot themselves in the foot in that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. It's fascinating because once you understand like where you are, what bucket, I guess, that you're in, what archetype you are, like how have you seen someone really embrace that type
Mm-hmm.
in like a business standpoint, like for an entrepreneur, let's just say, like how
Mm-hmm.
have you seen them or coached them on how to harness that to have a really great relationship with their wealth and build it their way? Because depending on your type, you build it a different way. Like I'm not a super risky person, so I don't see myself in the maverick bucket at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I know people like I'm like as you're saying these things, I'm thinking about different people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
But it works for them because they're aligned with that type, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
trying to be someone they're not. So I'm just curious what you've seen with the people you've been working with. Hey friend, let's talk. It's time to book your clarity call. We are going to spend 1 full hour focused on you. A clarity call isn't about pressure. It's about possibilities. It's about you. You having a space to talk through what's on your heart and mind, you walking away with a clear vision and practical next steps, and you feeling confident in what's next and how to get there. You don't need to have it all figured out. That's my job. All you need to do is show up and we'll figure it out together. This is the best hour you can invest in yourself right now. Not in 6 months from now, not next month, right now. And don't just take my word for it. Here's what one of my coaching clients had to say after working together.
Working with Martine has been one of the greatest gifts I've ever given myself. She didn't just coach me, she helped me redefine myself. From the very beginning, she created a space where I felt safe, seen, and supported. With her guidance, I uncovered buried parts of myself, set boundaries I never thought possible, and let go of the constant hustle that had defined my pace for far too long. She reminded me that the grass really is greener when you step away from the pressure and you start living the life you were truly meant to live. Because of Martine, I now stand a little taller, I celebrate my wins, big and small, and I've learned to slow down enough to find joy in the everyday moments. That shift is priceless.
That transformation, it starts with one conversation. It's time to stop spinning your wheels and start making real progress. So head right now to martinewilliams.com or in the show notes and grab your private clarity call spot on my calendar before they're gone. And since I personally monitor my inbox, if you don't see a time slot that fits your calendar, just send me an email at martine@martinewilliams.com with 3 times that do work, and I will make it work for you. All right, friend, let's get back to the show.
Well, one woman I'm working with right now, this is such a great example that you said, Maverick, because she is a coach also,
Okay.
and she's wanting to grow her business.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we all know, and you know, as a coach, anytime we try to stretch and grow, the voice of the inner critic gets bigger and tries to clamp you down because it's completely unsafe to do such a thing.
Yeah.
So for her, it felt really risky to hire an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And she has to hire an assistant in order to grow her business.
Yeah.
That's just where she's at. She's at that point. And this week she hired an assistant. She took the risk anyway. And we just celebrated that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, I know people do this all the time and it's not a big deal. But for me, she said it was such a huge step.
Yeah.
So part of it could be you're an accumulator or you're a ruler and you really have a hard time letting go and investing in your business in that way. So to find more balance, to look at the numbers and say, okay, you're at this point where you can afford it. You can hire someone for this amount, this many hours, it will give you this return. So it's just, breaking it down, understanding the numbers.
Yeah.
And then having that mindset shift to take the risk.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I'm thinking about again, like the personality assessment that I use. a lot of times we talk about like you might not naturally be a maverick, but there's going to be seasons of your business where you have to become a maverick, right? To take that risk, especially as entrepreneurs. I mean, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you're taking risks. It's a risky business, which is why not everyone gets into it or stays in it because the hard hits, right? And then you're like, okay, to go to the next level, I need to invest, but I'm afraid to invest or I'm afraid to hire that assistant. But it sounds like to me it's similar in that way that it doesn't just because you have this natural archetype with your money, you might have to become a maverick in different seasons. And so I feel like that's where your coaching probably comes in to help people to kind of step into that role too and say, okay, for this season, I need to be more of the maverick and I need to take a little bit more risk. Is that true? Or am I just,
Yeah, I like that you framed it that way because there's like a basket of archetypes. And I think as humans, we can expand our range. Like maybe we're usually a nurturer and an accumulator, but you know what? We can try out being a maverick from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this capacity, right? Growth.
Yeah.
You're growing into to know I can hold any one of those roles if the reward is going to be there, if I know it's going to move further in my business or whatever the end goal is. So it's just this freedom of, okay, this is who I naturally am. And I have the flexibility to know I can become a maverick if I need to, or I can become a ruler or, whichever one is. It doesn't box you in. Like I'm not really big, I don't know if you are like on labeling people one type, because I just believe we're multifaceted and I believe in our capacity to grow into other things.
Yeah. Very well said. I love that.
Yeah. So I was sitting here thinking about my audience, and we talked about this kind of before we started this interview. And they are like your client you were just talking about. Either they want to invest in an assistant, or they're wanting to invest in a course, or they're wanting to invest in coaching, but there is something that is holding them back. Whether it's this idea of, well, I should just be able to figure this out on my own. That's a huge one. Say for ambitious women, we're like, I don't need any help. I got this on my own. It could be just, is this irresponsible to invest in coaching or invest in the help because I have kids and they have needs, and who am I to invest this money? I'm just curious with you and the work that you've done, is that a certain type that is creating that for them? Or is it a mindset block? Like, I really want to help my audience overcome that, because I remember what it feels like to invest the first time. I do. It's scary and you feel like I don't have the money. I'm not going to be able to afford this. But I also know had I not invested, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Right. So I'm on the other side of those scary investments and I'm still investing. So for me, my mindset and belief now is not if I'm going to invest, it's who am I going to invest it with, right? Finding the right person for the next goal that I have. But there's so many women in entrepreneurship who don't take that first step of investment because of some type of block there. So could you help them understand a little bit more about that? And not from I'm not shaming anybody who's listening if that's where you are, because we've all been there. But I would love to get my audience to a place to where they're like, it's not if I'm going to get the help, it's when and who I'm going to choose to help me. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And it's such a big question.
Yeah. So it's okay if you don't have the answer. It might be like the $1 million question, right? That we're all trying to get the answer for. And I can't think of like, what was I think about this all the time, Melissa, because I just know so many women are just on the brink of their breakthrough if they would just take this next step, right? And so my heart just goes out to them. And so I try to think of like, what was it for me? And it really was just deciding that I had gone as far as I could go with the tools that I had, and coaching myself before I even really knew how to just take that risk to become the maverick. Like I had to become the maverick. I'm not a typical maverick, but I had to become that maverick and take that first step into the land of the unknown.
Yeah, right. Oh, there's so many facets. So maybe what I'll do is back up and go to like the underwater and the
iceberg.
Thank you, analogy. I think I'm in a season of life where I forget words sometimes. This has been happening a lot lately.
Oh, it's totally me. I'm like, what was I just getting ready to ask you? My brain just goes to reset sometimes.
Iceberg.
You're in good company, Melissa. It's all good.
Thank you. So I just think it's so hard to grow because it's so tied up in our worth and what we believe is possible for ourselves, even when we think in our mind. And
Mhm.
I'm saying this out of personal experience too. Like, even we can say in our mind, of course, yes, I want that. And
Mm-hmm.
yet, like, why are we not doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that can be a really frustrating place to be.
Mm-hmm. It's like you see the goal and you know you're right there.
Mm-hmm.
I like think about today. I was on my way to an appointment and I could see the office building, but there was an accident. There was all this traffic. And I'm like, I see
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm literally like 5 minutes away, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
stuck sitting in this traffic right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we help them break through
Mm-hmm.
traffic, you know, and
Right.
the stuckness of their thoughts. And I really do believe it
Right.
comes down to their thoughts and their beliefs, like you said, and their
Yeah.
worthiness
Yeah.
of investing in that.
And that's such a great analogy. And so much of it can be not in your awareness. So then it's like, what do you do with that if it's not in your awareness? So I think that the key is to go through a program or a process where are guided in going down there to look around, to bring that to light,
Yeah.
and then choosing, okay, this no longer serves me.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to transform, ready to let go, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And here are some things that are also true about who I am and my beliefs that really support my self, my growth, my worth, my value in the world. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's build from that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, when I'm in that place, what's the next step? And I think it's a lot of just coming, if you're wanting to grow, coming back to that path of your authentic, most powerful self, who
Mm-hmm.
you are naturally, and
Mm-hmm.
just choosing to come back to that over and over and over again. And an analogy I like to use is like the dinner table, right? We've got all those different voices and the critics and and then you've got your wise self.
Yeah.
And it's like choosing, like, okay, I hear you. Thank you very much. I'm going to choose this voice right now. But you have to know what that voice is telling you too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why going underneath and exploring what those messages are is so invaluable,
Yeah. Yeah.
because then you can start choosing and just one step in front of the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And just helping people, like, I think we ask ourselves some questions sometimes, but we don't spend time answering the question because we're
Mm-hmm.
either afraid to go down that depth,
Yeah.
right, to
Yeah.
see what the real answers are. But we ask ourselves some really great questions. We just don't take the
Mm-hmm.
time to actually answer the
Mm-hmm.
question. You know, what
Yeah.
is it that's holding you back? What is the resistance? Why is the
Mm-hmm.
resistance there? Like, don't be afraid of the resistance. Let's lean in and figure out where is
Mm-hmm.
that coming from? Because if
Mm-hmm.
it's showing up here, it's probably showing up somewhere else too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's like a holistic approach. And, you know, I have said several times on this show that busyness is part of the distraction, right?
Yeah.
Like we just stay so
Mm-hmm.
busy that we don't spend time answering some of those really valuable questions to consciously make decisions on what's the next best step for me as a mom, as an entrepreneur, for my family. We just stay in the busyness of life and then stay where we are, right? We're still sitting in that traffic and we haven't moved an inch because we
Mm-hmm.
haven't actually spent the time to address it. And that just takes time and it takes courage. It really
Mm-hmm.
does.
Yeah. That's a very wise observation. We ask the questions and we don't stay around long enough to hear, from our intuition or whatever, the depths, like what feels true. What is
Yeah.
the answer?
Yeah. And I find like the default answer is I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's just easy to say, like, I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
you do, like, if you just stop for a second and really allow yourself to go there,
Yeah.
what's your theory? You know, like, what do you think
Mm-hmm.
is the reason? And
Right.
I think we just, again, live so distracted. And I also think there's just a belief about the hustle and the money. And I have to work really hard and hustle
Mm-hmm.
really hard for the money. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of emotions that go into that too for women
Mm-hmm.
and their relationship with money. So if someone is listening, we'll shift gears a little bit and they're thinking about their relationship with money. So for example, I was working with a client one time and she was saying that she had a belief, and she didn't know this until we asked the right questions. Again, this
Mhm.
is why coaching is so powerful, y'all. I'm not just saying this because I'm a coach and
Mhm.
Melissa's a coach, but we're willing to ask you the questions and like give you the safe space to answer them with no shame, no judgment, but just getting to the answer. But so we kind of came up with, she had a belief that money changes people. And so making more money, she felt like she was going to change because she'd seen it change other people. And so I'm like, do you realize that that is your firm belief? You're going to self-sabotage your success because you think it's going to change you for the negative. So why would you make the calls, send the
Mhm.
emails, do the networking if
Yeah.
you really, your relationship with money is that it's going to change me into a bad person?
Mhm.
That was a huge piece of awareness for her
Mhm.
on that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or similar relationships with money that people have.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. There are a lot of people. I think this goes back to the cultural narrative that money is bad or money is the root of all evil or
Mhm.
it's going to change people. So you are spot on with, you're right. Of course, you're not going to grow past wherever
Mm-mm.
you are if you feel like that's going to happen. So it's an opportunity to decide, is that what you believe? Is that what you want to believe? What would happen if you had more money?
Mhm.
What would change for your family? What opportunities would exist? And like just exploring that and deciding
Yeah.
what you want.
I again, like I think sometimes like that was hard for her to like kind of go there. And that's where I think again, like having that guidance to ask that question and help her to kind of see. And then I love what you just said, like then you get to decide, is that something I want to choose to continue to believe? Because
Mm-hmm.
we know now we can change our beliefs, we can change those neural
Mm-hmm.
pathways in our brain. And so
Mm-hmm.
you get to decide, is that the most useful, helpful thought as I'm building a business, is to believe that the money's going to make me a bad person or that it's going to change me? Or do I want to change the channel completely in my brain and think a new thought to get a new action and a new result?
Yes. One of the things that we've observed is that money's a magnifier. So
Yeah.
whatever habits, beliefs, and patterns you have when you're earning 50,000 are going to be the same patterns you have if you're earning 2 million per year. If you're not paying your bills on time at 50,000, you're still going to struggle to meet your bills at 2 million, believe it or not,
Yeah.
because that's the pattern. So I think that's one of the benefits too of coaching, is to figure out what are my habits, beliefs, and patterns, and how do I have a healthy relationship and cultivate patterns that will support my success
Mm.
and change those now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that thought. Money is a magnifier. And I feel like I heard someone else say that one other time that came on the podcast, but I totally forgot about that. It's so true because again, if you know that you don't pay your bills on time
Mhm.
and money's going to magnify that, you're probably thinking of all the stress, like more money, more problems.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So having someone to kind of talk you through that, because you can change the channel on that too. You don't have to believe that more money is going to be more problems. You don't have to believe that you're going to continue down those same habits. Like you can change your
Mhm.
habits.
Right.
You can change the things in
Mhm.
preparation for the explosive growth that you're getting ready to have in your business. And so
Mhm.
there's just so much power in the mind that we're
Yes.
just not taught how to manage and taught how to make some of these shifts, which is why, again, I firmly believe in coaching and getting the help that you need. So I want to shift gears a little bit just to some personal. This podcast, I talk a lot about burnout.
Mhm.
And I do think it's become a big problem in the entrepreneur space, especially for mom entrepreneurs, because we're doing the mom and we're doing the entrepreneurship at the same time. So I'm just curious if you have ever experienced burnout before. And if you have, what did it feel like for you? Some people, it's like lack of inspiration. Some people, it's like they're in the hospital. Some people, it's just they just feel a little off. So have you ever experienced burnout before in your career or as a mom?
I don't know that I've experienced burnout per se, but I do get tired. Like there's ups and downs,
Mm-hmm.
and I do take really good care of myself. So I do take time for myself. I take a
Yeah.
hot bath every single night in Epsom salts, and I meditate. I journal. I try to do that so that I'm more resilient in whatever
Yeah.
comes up.
Yeah.
And I try to be really aware of, I guess boundaries would be one way to call it, and just asking for help. My husband's always willing to help out.
Mhm.
And I know we talk about the mental load for women because we're the
Yeah.
ones who like, he has ADD, so he's not going to remember to do anything. So I have to keep reminding him.
You have 80
And
tabs open and he has one.
right, exactly. So I just have to remember to ask for help and know that it's okay to take a break.
Mhm.
And truly I'm past the hard part, I think, because my daughter's 16 now and she just, doesn't want to hang out with me very much
I
anymore.
get it. So for the ones of you that have littles, your time is coming. Just hang
Your
in
time is
there.
coming.
Yeah, hang in
Exactly.
there. But I
Yep.
love that you've taken it serious, your preventative work, right? So
Mhm.
you're journaling, you're doing your baths, you're
Mhm.
meditating. All of those things are preventing
Mhm.
the crash and burn, right?
Yeah.
And so like I'm a big proponent of that too. Like let's not wait till we get there. What can we
Right.
do ahead of time? And
Yeah.
even if you're a mom of littles listening, I say this all the time. If you have 15 minutes to go outside and take a walk, get
Yeah.
outside, get your face in the sunshine, take a 15-minute bath. There's no all or nothing. And sometimes it is in the nooks and crannies of time when your kids are between feedings or they're
Mhm.
having a nap. Like there are pockets of time if you're choosing to look for them,
Yep. If you're
and
choosing to
then
prioritize that. I remember when my daughter was little, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning so I could have an hour to myself every
yeah,
day.
yeah. So I love that. So tell us a little bit about where people can connect with you if they want more information on wealth coaching and they're like, okay, this is an area of my life that I really want to focus in on. Tell us a little bit about, is there a specific client that you're looking for, number one? And then also like, where can they connect with you?
Mhm. Great question. I typically work with people who have inheritances
Okay.
and navigating, this meteor coming into their world
Mhm.
and changing their life. And I've developed a coaching program called Way into Wealth, and it's all about going from, putting the scuba gear on to defining a vision of who you are at your best with money, and
Okay.
then creating a roadmap of like, okay, what does that mean for me in my different areas of my financial life, like taxes and financial planning and purpose and all of those types of things. And that could be appropriate for anyone who
Yeah.
wants to do that work and transform their relationship with money. And that is, you can find out more about that on the website called wayintowealth.com.
Okay.
And that outlines, it's an eight session one-on-one program that you're welcome to look to see what happens in each of those sessions.
Okay. Awesome. Well, tell everyone, if you had the opportunity to encourage all the mompreneurs of the world today, what's one thing you would want them to know as we kind of wrap up?
Good question. I would want them to know the first thing that popped into my mind, that you're okay,
Mm,
absolutely, where you are right now, and lean into joy, create from joy.
I love that. Create from joy, because so many create from hustle.
Right. That's the whole scarcity mindset, right? Versus
Yeah.
abundant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, that's good. Create from joy. That needs to be on a t-shirt somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah.
You need to brand that phrase,
I
Melissa.
could.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great. And I will put the links to everything in the show notes for everyone who's listening so they can go and check out how to connect with you, Melissa.
Thank you so much. It's been such a delight to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. All right, friends, I will catch you on the next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.